All right, so we're looking at solving multi-step equations. And when you're doing multi-step equations, the one thing you want to keep in mind is you're always doing inverse operations. The goal is to get x or y or whatever your variable is by itself. Okay, so if I give you like 2x plus 5 equals 10, the goal is to get x by itself. So in order to get x by itself, I have to move everything that's on that side away. So to move stuff across the equal sign, that's when you do the inverse operations, okay? So as you're working through these, the kind of steps that we want to look at is we always want to distribute if we have to distribute. So if I had like 2 times x plus 5, you would want to distribute first, okay? Then you want to combine like terms if there are any that need to be done. And that's on both sides. So if you have variables on both sides, you also want to take care of that as well. Then you want to add or subtract first, and that's your inverse operations. And then you want to multiply or divide. A lot of you guys are trying to multiply or divide before you've added or subtracted, and that's creating an issue for you. So let's go back to that example that I gave you up there, which was 2x plus 5 equals 10. So if I'm solving this, I can skip step 1 because there's nothing to distribute. I can skip step 2 because 2x and 5 are not like terms. So then I go to step 3 and I subtract 5 from both sides. So then that gives me 2x equals 5. Now my last step is to divide. Because the 2 is being multiplied, you undo that multiplication to divide by 2. So I get x equals 5 over 2. Okay, so we're going to do a lot more examples before you guys are kind of by yourself. So let's try one with variables on both sides. So we have 8x minus 2 equals negative 9 plus 7x. And this is actually super common to see in geometry because a lot of the ones we were doing on the test, you were setting two things equal to each other. So you're going to have variables on both sides. So the goal is to get all your variables to one side and all the numbers to the other side. I like to keep my variables positive, but you don't necessarily have to do that. So when you have variables on both sides, so if we have variables on both sides, you want to move x's first and then move your numbers, okay? And then that's going to set you up to be better. So if I want to move my x's first, I'm going to move the 7x over. And that 7x is being added, so I'm going to move that entire 7x thing. That combines with the 8x, not with the 2. So 8 minus 7 is 1x minus 2 equals negative 9. So now this is back to that one we kind of just looked at. So now I want to add or subtract, and so I'm going to add my 2 over first. So that gives me x equals negative 7. And then if at this point I needed to divide or multiply, I would. I don't need to. X just equals negative 7. So let's look at another example. So we have 5p minus 14 equals 8p plus 4. So I want to get all my variables to one side. I like to keep my variables positive, so I'm going to move the 5p over. So I subtract 5p from both sides, and I get negative 14 equals 3p plus 4. I'm going to subtract 4 from both sides. So I get negative 18 equals 3p. Divide by 3. So p equals negative 6. Notice at this step, I did not divide by 3. I had to move the 4 first. You have to move whatever you have over first, okay? So I moved the 4 over, got 18, and then I divided by 3 to get 6. And that's the answer. Okay, so now I'm going to do one with a set of parentheses in it. So I have 12 equals negative 4 times negative 6x minus 3. So this has a set of parentheses. So my first step was to distribute. So I am going to have to distribute. So I take -4 times -6, which is 24x, and then I take -4 times -3, which is positive 12. Okay, so now the goal is to get x by itself, so I'm going to subtract 12 from both sides. This gives me 0 equals 24x. A lot of people will be like, oh, I can't do this. Yes, you can. We divide by 24. 0 divided by 24 is 0. And so 0 is your answer. Okay, I'm going to do one more example with you, and then you guys are going to get started on your worksheet. Okay, so I have -1 times 1 plus 7x minus 6 times -7 minus x equals 36. Okay, so I distribute on both of these. So -1 times 1 is -1. -1 times 7 is -7x. -6 times -7 is positive 42. And -6 times -x is 6x. So I distributed. The next step is to combine like terms. So on this side, I have a -7x and I have a 6x. I am just going to combine those. You only do inverse operations when I move across the equal sign. I am not moving across the equal sign on this problem, so I am not going to add the 7x or subtract the 6x because I am not moving it across. I'm just taking this -7x pile and this 6x pile and combining them into one pile to make a -1x. Same thing with the -1 and the 42. I'm not adding 1 to the 42. You're taking the -1 plus the 42 to get positive 41. And that's where a lot of confusion comes in. People are trying to like add 1 here. That you can't do that. That's only if you're moving across the equal sign. And those are not across, they're on the same side. So you're just making one big pile. So then this is a one-step or a multi-step equation at this point that we've been solving. So I subtract 41 from both sides, and that gives me -x equals -5. You have to get rid of that -1. So you can either multiply by a -1 or you can divide by a -1, but either way it changes the signs, and I get x equals 5. Okay, I lied to you when I said that was our last example. We are actually going to do one more example, and it's going to be kind of similar to that one I just did. So it's -3 times 4x plus 3 plus 4 times 6x plus 1 equals 43. So on this one, I am going to distribute. So I get -12x minus 9. I'm also going to distribute over here to get 24x plus 4. So now I am combining like terms. And again, they are on the same side. So you're not like adding a 12x or adding the 9. You're not inversing those operations there because they're on the same side. You only do that if you want to move it over to the other side, okay? So I'm combining the -12 with the 24. -12 plus 24 is a positive 12x. I do same thing with the -9 and the 4. -9 plus 4 is -5. So then I'm going to add 5 to both sides. And that gives me 12x equals 48. Divide both sides by 12. And x equals 4. Okay, so now you guys need to, when you finish this and you've taken notes, you do need to take notes. And you need to show proof that you have taken your notes. Go up to the sub and he will give you a copy of a worksheet today. I did number 1 on the board with you. So what you're doing is you're working on the problems on the front side. And when you work the problem, it'll give you an answer. You look at the bottom to find that answer. And that tells you what color you're going to be using. So for like number 1, when I solve it, I get x equals 2. So then I look at the bottom and I find 2 and it says light blue. So all the 1s are going to get colored light blue. If you have any questions, I'm sure Miss Weil will be able to answer it or the sub will be able to answer it. Extra credit is the coloring portion of it. You do not have to color. You can just work the assignment and then do something else. Remember, you also have your construction booklets that you need to do. So when you're finished, you need to work on your construction booklets. If you guys have any questions, let me know.